Hi, I'm DK and welcome to my channel. I've been collecting manga since I was in middle school, and now that I'm working a full-time job and able to buy more, I've been hauling so many that I wanted to share with you all my manga collecting journey. I plan to reread the older ones, like these, and share how I feel about these manga now. Today, I'll be starting from my middle school to early high school series. I will preface by saying that my manga collecting skills back then was interesting, as I have some series that are in no particular volume order, and you will see what I mean shortly. So let the nostalgia begin. So the first series I'm going to be talking about is Cardcaptor Sakura, which was actually the first manga series that I got when I was in middle school. I actually first watched this as an anime on TV, and I remember going to the mall and spotting these books. I think it was like Hot Topic or something, I don't remember. But I was like, what? They have a manga for this anime? And that was when I dived into the manga world. And so this series has a special place in my heart because it was what started me on manga collecting. And as you can see, it's not in such great condition since I was younger back then and didn't really think about taking care of my manga as well. Luckily the fourth one looks very in good condition still. But as you can see, I have volumes 1, 2, and 4. I'm not sure if I lost the third volume or if I just didn't buy it, and if I didn't, then I'm not sure why I didn't continue it. But yeah, so Cardcaptor Sakura is by Clamp, who I feel is a very big name in the manga and possibly sometimes the anime world too back then. I just love their art. Like, oh my gosh, like the art is so pretty. Like, look at that, and like I just love it. It's so beautiful. And Clamp is actually made up of a group of mangaka who create these, and the art style is just so pretty, and they still manage to keep this sort of style even as they continue creating more manga. But some of the ones that they create are XXX Holic, Tsubasa Chronicles, and what I really love about Clamp is how they manage to intertwine all their worlds together, especially from the series Tsubasa Chronicles, which actually has Sakura here as one of the main characters in sort of a alternate universe form. Cardcaptor Sakura is, as you can see, a magical girl sort of genre. This was very popular back then. I feel like it's very popular now too, but for me, I was so into magical girl series back then, such as Cardcaptor Sakura here, Sailor Moon, Tokyo Meow Meow. Since it was on TV, it just really appealed to me. I would wake up super early in the morning just to watch them. But what is Cardcaptor Sakura about? Cardcaptor Sakura is about a 4th grader, Sakura Kinomoto, who manages to find a magical book created by Cloud Reed, and these book contained the Cloud cards, which she's holding right here. And the Cloud cards has somehow been released. And Kerberos, who was the protector or the protector of the Cloud book, didn't manage to protect it. Now they're on a mission to collect all the Cloud cards to stop an impending doom that may befall Earth. And Sakura then meets a group of people who sort of helps her to collect these Cloud cards. And so rereading this series again, the nostalgia that hit me from, like, I would be like, oh my gosh, I remember this or I remember that. For example, Toya, who is Sakura's brother, and Yukito, who is Toya's best friend and also Sakura's crush, had this sort of romance that I did notice back then when I was reading it, but now it's so much more prevalent to me as a slight fujoshi, that they definitely must be having something more going on between their relationship that was not said in this series, and I did kind of want more because they are so cute and adorable together in this series. So one thing that did bother me in this series was the student-teacher relationship. Now, I don't have anything against a lot of the student-teacher relationships in manga because I did find myself enjoying some of the storylines, but there are a couple of couples in here that have teacher-student relationships. Even Sakura's mother and father were in a student-teacher relationship. But the one that kind of bothered me a little was Sakura's friend and classmate Riku, who had a relationship with their teacher. And I just feel like that age gap and the age at the time is a little bit too much for me. So she's probably 9 or 10, and then he most likely is over 18 years old. And I feel like while it's okay to have an age gap between relationships, I feel like at that age, being a 4th grader and an adult man, it's just a little bit too much for me. And I mean, back in the older generations, it was normal for these sorts of relationships. So that's the one thing that did bug me about this series and while reading these 3 volumes. And so would I recommend this series again? Yes, for a younger audience who likes magical girl. For me now, I don't think I would want to read it right now, but definitely I would collect it for nostalgia purposes. So we'll see. I mean, I'm still collecting more manga right now, so we'll see if I end up collecting the rest of it. And I would wish for this version, but I highly doubt it'll be easy to find it anymore. So yeah, so this is Cardcaptor Sakura. Alright, so the next series that I'm going to be talking about is Rurouni Kenshin, as you see here. So I collected the first 4 volumes during my early high school years, possibly freshman or sophomore year. And you can see that I also have this larger volume here. It's actually the omnibus version of Rurouni Kenshin. So once the series was complete, they came out with these, and I got part 9, which is the last 4 volumes of Rurouni Kenshin. I'm not sure why I didn't continue to buy these. I'm pretty sure it could be due to the amount of manga that was coming out and attracting me, and so I just kept buying like other series and never really completing a lot of them. As you can see, like I didn't even complete Cardcaptor Sakura back then. But what appealed to me was that I watched the anime first. As you can see, anime really influenced me a lot back then. And I was walking through the bookstore and I didn't know that they had a manga of Rurouni Kenshin. And when I saw it, I just had to buy it. First of all, because I really like the art style. The art style is just so, to me, I love the inking, the fight scenes. Yeah, it just looks really nice to me. And just look at this cover right here. Like, oh my goodness, like just the traditional clothing of Japan. I just love it. So pretty. And I was also really into historical stuff about Japan back then too when I was younger. So that's why this also appealed to me. And you can see though that there was a change in art styles. So the later versions of Rurouni Kenshin, as you can see, like it does seem a little bit more simple, and the edges of the line art is different. It's not as sharp anymore. It could possibly be because the characters were getting older, so maybe that sort of speaks to like the age and stuff. But I would say that I really do still prefer the art style in the older volumes. But yeah, so for those of you who may not know, Rurouni Kenshin although it was a very popular series back then, in my opinion. Rurouni Kenshin is about Humidai Kenshin, as you can see here, the main protagonist. He's very well known for his cross on his cheeks and his sword. The sword is a sakabato, which is sort of a reverse blade, so you can't really kill anyone with it. And that's sort of his, I would say, like, sort of his motto as a Rurouni. And he does have a dark past. He used to be the Hitokiri Batosai, who was basically an undercover assassin who killed a lot of high-profile leaders. And the reason why he did this was because he was fighting with sort of like a rebellion to go against the Japanese government at that time, because they thought that it was too corrupt, or it wasn't, there for the people. So he was one of the key people who broke Japan into the new era, for the government to reform. And once he did that, he disappeared in the face of the earth. Nobody knew what happened to him, because he had become a Rurouni, a wandering swordsman. That is until he meets Kaoru, who is also one of the main characters in this story. So Kaoru is a feisty swordswoman who took over her father's dojo when he passed away. And when these two meet, there's also two other characters I feel that are the main characters too in this story. One is Yahiko, who is a 10-year-old samurai in this day and age. And then there's Sano, who's my favorite character. He's actually right here, Sano. So these four sort of go through a long journey of helping Kenshin to face his past. So a lot of his foes and allies show up, bringing up the past that I feel like he was trying to run away from. And his scar is really like the signature for that. The reason why the scar didn't disappear was because he was still caught up in his past, and he couldn't get away from it. And so because he has to face his past, now he has the support of these other characters. He begins to learn to find out who he really is, what he wants to do, and really just let go of what had happened, and move forward, which I feel like was sort of the message in this series. But yeah, would I recommend this manga for anyone to read now? Yes. I would recommend it for an older audience, older teenagers or even adults, because there is a lot of violence and blood in here, and a lot of mature content that a younger age would understand. But yeah, and I mean, if you don't want to read the manga, there's still the anime and the live action. All of the it's complete now, the live action, I'm pretty sure, and it's so good. I highly recommend it. The movies just cover the main arcs really well. A lot of the live actions that I've watched are not really good, but the one for Rurouni Kenshin really does it really well. It's just the cinematography, the action scenes, the fight scenes. Yeah, it was really good. And so yeah, so that is Rurouni Kenshin. The next series I'm going to be talking about is DNAngel, and I have the first 2 volumes of this. I feel like I bought this series because of the anime that they had. I caught glimpses of it on TV and I was like, oh, that's interesting. Never really watched the anime again, but then I saw these series in the bookstore and I was like, ooh, because of course the cover art caught my attention. I was like, well, why don't I buy it and give it a try? And now you see it here. And I most likely bought these late middle school to early high school years. And I will preface by saying that the Tokyo Pop didn't translate and print them anymore after volume 11, which is a shame. But I did read out recently that Viz picked it up and translated it, but it is only available digitally. So what is DNAngel about? So DNAngel is about 14-year-old Daisuke Niwa, who is on this cover. He's the main protagonist. So he's been taught in a young age by his mother and grandfather to basically learn a lot of shady things like breaking and entering into places, and learning how to maneuver over traps such as laser alarms and stuff like that. And it was all in order to prepare him for what the Niwa bloodline sort of inherits when they turn the age of 14 and fall in love for the first time, and that is to transform into Dark, who is the phantom thief that collects art. Very high art that is guarded by a lot of people. So what he does is he leaves a note. In this case, Daisuke's mother leaves a note to the police or to the museums that the art pieces are at, that Dark will be coming that day to steal the art collection. And so who does Daisuke fall in love with exactly? He falls in love with a twin by the name of Risa. So Risa is right here. And he confesses to Risa, but Risa rejects him. And so he is sort of in an unrequited love. And in order to break the bond between him and Dark, he needs his love to be requited. So yeah. And then, of course, Dark falls in love with Riku, which is Risa's twin sister. And they are both in the same class as Daisuke. And so what happens is Daisuke would turn into Dark if his love meter is strong enough when he sees Risa, and then Dark will transfer him back into Daisuke when he sees Riku, because he's fallen in love with Riku. So this sort of becomes a love square, I would say, because Riku falls in love with Daisuke and Risa falls in love with Dark. And so it revolves, so the storyline kind of revolves basically around this romance and the sort of stealing artworks. And I would have to say that rereading this again, I didn't find the twins as appealing to me. I'm just not vibing with them anymore. Actually, I would like Daisuke to end up with Satoshi, who's right here. So he's actually sort of like the cop or the commissioner. He works with his dad to try and capture Dark. And apparently there's something behind him too for why he needs to capture Dark. It hasn't been revealed yet. I mean, I've only read 2 volumes in, so I'm not sure what it is. But I mean, if they both end up together, that would have been nice. And I haven't read any further than these 2 volumes. So I would say that for recommending this manga, anyone who's interested in fantasy, romance, maybe you would enjoy this. For me now, I wouldn't continue reading this. I just don't find it as appealing as I used to. And yeah, so this is DNAngel. The next manga series I'm going to be talking about is Juvenile Orion. Wow, so I actually don't know why I got this manga in my early high school years. Maybe it was the cover art, and maybe it was the summary that made me want to read this. And rereading this again, I was surprisingly surprised by how much I actually like it still. It's definitely a very fast-paced read, and it consists of 5 volumes. As you can see, I have the full edition, so 1 through 5. And the art is fairly, I would say the art was okay, but I think what got to me was the fast-paced storyline that just kept making me want to keep reading about this. So what is Juvenile Orion about? It's about a group of teens plus a teacher who have these supernatural powers, and they're from different factions such as the Ayayashiki, Wisdom, Dark Lore, EGO. So some of them have angelic powers, demonic powers, and psychic powers, and they can all be controlled by what is called a mind breaker, and that is where our main protagonist, Mana Kirihara, comes into play here. So she is a mind breaker, which means that she has the power to control those that have supernatural powers. All of these characters are in the same school and she becomes their mind breaker, and they work with her to sort of bring peace to this world that has been in battle for 2,000 years now, and a supernatural battle for 2,000 years now that other people or humans who don't have the powers aren't aware of. And so Mana returns to her hometown after her mother passes away and meets her childhood friend Kaname again. And she comes in with sort of a traumatic past where she must have encountered something supernatural, but because it was so traumatic, she basically suppressed her memory so she wouldn't remember what happened, or so she thinks, and you'll find it out in the manga why she lost her memories of what happened to her when she was younger. And so I am a little disappointed that it ended with 5 volumes. There's so much more that can happen in this story, and I do feel like it is sort of just like a spin-off, because I read that there's actually an Aquarian Age anime too that's going on, and this was just sort of like a spin-off of it, but I do wish that there was more that happened in this. I wanted to figure out more about what Mana does, and I just feel like there was a lot of holes in the story. I wanted to know more about the world, more about the faction. What are they going to do to fight against this war, because there's so many more other mind breakers and more people with supernatural powers. So what are they going to do to make the world more peaceful again? And I would say that some of the things that I liked about this was the slight bromance going on, especially between Tsukasa and I forget what the sensei's name is, and against Tomonori, and so cute. And also of course the romance is the main romance between Mana and Kaname, but I really like Itsuki. He's one of my favorite characters in this story, and I like how he interacts with Kaname. It's so funny. But yeah, I really enjoyed this manga. I would recommend this to anyone who likes a fast-paced fantasy storyline with a slight romance in it, and some action scenes in there. But yeah, would I reread this again in the future? I do. I would recommend myself to reading this again now. If I were to pick it up, I would. So yeah, so this is Juvenile Orion. Alright, so let's get on to our final series for this video, which is InuYasha. And goodness, this anime and manga, just looking at this again and rereading it brought on so much nostalgia. I first saw InuYasha on Adult Swim, and it really appealed to me again because of the historical aspect and the supernatural elements that occurred in this series. This was my first introduction to an isekai genre. Isekai is basically where the main protagonist ends up in a different world, whether they were reincarnated, plopped into the world or something. That's sort of what an isekai genre is, and I just loved it, and rereading this now, oh my gosh, I now have the urge to actually go and buy the original work from Rumiko Takahashi, and not this format of where I bought the anime version of it. And this was also the series that started me on a fanfiction craze, because while Kagome and InuYasha are the leading couple in this series. I really like InuYasha's older brother, who is Sesshomaru. Oh my goodness, he was one of my crushes back then. I just could not get enough of him, and because I couldn't get enough of the storyline, I went online to search for more, you know, like stories about InuYasha, and that's where I became crazy about fanfiction. If you want to hear about that journey, let me know. I have a lot of suggestions if you want to know. Although they are very, they're not canon. So they are, the fanfictions that I'm interested in are, like, for example, Kagome and Sesshomaru that I like together. But aside from my distraction, all of this craze that comes from rereading InuYasha. What is InuYasha about, right? So InuYasha is about Kagome Higurashi, who's right here on the cover. And she ends up falling into the well at her family's temple. And when she falls into the well, she gets transported back into feudal Japan, where demons, a lot of supernatural beings roam the world. She finds out that she is the reincarnation of Kikyo, who was the priestess by the well that she fell into. And she meets InuYasha, who's right here. He is a half human, half demon. And he has a long history with Kikyo because he and Kikyo had fallen in love, but they both supposedly betrayed each other. And so these two team up because Kagome finds out that she has this jewel inside of her called the Shikan Jewel. So the Shikan Jewel, which is right here, that Kikyo is holding, is a very strong jewel that can become tainted really easily if a demon were to have a hold of it. And the demon's powers would basically amplify by a lot, and they would be so strong. And so Kikyo, who you saw before, helped and protected this jewel. And Kagome finds out that she actually had the jewel inside of her body. So when Kikyo passed away, she died with the jewel. And Kagome is then reborn with the jewel inside of her. And a demon attacks Kagome and basically rips out the jewel from her body. And during this fight with the demon, she basically breaks the jewel, and it spreads out, millions of them probably, throughout the whole world of feudal Japan. And so now her and InuYasha are tasked with the role of collecting the jewel. And they meet a lot of people along the way. You'll see Miroku here, Shippo, and just a lot of characters. And they are on their journey to collect the jewels and also face a foe, the nastiest foe that they have, who basically does everything that he can to collect the shards himself to gain more power and also fight against InuYasha and them because of his deep-seated grudge against Kikyo. And if you read the story, you'll find out more why. But anyways, this storyline really intrigued me because of the adventure, the fighting, the romance that happened. And rereading this again just brought it back again. I just whizzed through these books again, and you can see that I have like books 6 and 7 of the anime manga. Very random, but that's because there were romantic aspects in here that really caught my attention. And then I also have the movie 1 version, which has a different art style to it. But man, I just could not put it down. I just kept reading it. So anyways, aside from the nostalgia, the storyline for me is still very good. I just love the adventures that they go on, their character development. It's very long, but very satisfying for me as you learn about how the characters continue to develop and change through their journey. And while I still feel on the fence about Kagome and InuYasha's relationship, I still really enjoy the series. And would I recommend this? Yes, I would recommend this for older teenagers and even adults. and I would definitely recommend this to myself again if I had not read it before. So that is InuYasha. So we are at the end of this video, where I've spoken to you all about some of the manga that I have bought during my late middle school to early high school years. These are only but a few. I have a lot more, and you will be seeing that in the coming videos, and I will be discussing my thoughts on them. Overall, as you can see, at the beginning I really liked a lot of the shonen, more action fight scene manga with a little bit of romance, and then as I continued to move into high school, I started to seek out more romance genres, and you will see in the future that I have a craze about shoujo, the shoujo side of things. You also see that I watched a lot of anime when I was younger, and that really influenced me at the time with the manga that I bought. So yeah, let me know in the comments section below what manga you grew up with. Would you still recommend them or read them yourself? Any recommendations for me? And thank you for watching. If you like this video, please like and subscribe for more content on my manga collection.